Hi, my name is Julia Pedrosa, and I will be doing case study chapter 15, the teacher as an intermediary between national curriculum and classroom. This chapter examines the imbalance between curriculum and implementation and the freedom of the teacher at the terminal end of the curriculum chain. The case study takes place in Korea, where a poll was conducted about the national curriculum. Out of the 28 respondents, 64.3% said they felt training in curriculum design was irrelevant to them as teachers, and it wasn't their job to decide what to teach. It should be left to those who had a view of the larger picture. The other two felt strongly that it had a place in a teacher's education. This case study does a really good job of pointing out the disconnect in the curriculum, the teachers, and the students. National curriculum. In Korea, education is governed by a national curriculum. NC will be used to refer to the national curriculum. The decisions regarding what children need to know and when it should be learned are made by a dedicated branch of the national government. The national curricula are established in the United Kingdom, Japan, China, and many other countries. In Australia, educational policies are made by the states or territories, although a national curriculum may be adopted in the future. In the United States, educational policies are also left to the states. Even when Nickleby came around, it even allowed standards to be set by the states. Background: lower secondary education in Seoul, Korea. Students enter middle school about the age of 13. 13 is a universal age, which differs from the system used in Korea to express age. Students go to elementary school for 6 years. In middle school, years are reset, so they are referred to as first year or first grade instead of 7th grade. For 3 years, students alternate between 5 days or 6-day weeks, attending classes for 6 hours or more Monday through Friday and half day on alternate Saturdays. After school classes may add 2 or more hours to the schedule. Semesters run from March to July and August to February. Some schools can alter the pattern in the sense of lengthening the hours, and certain weekdays may be longer than others. There is no failing, and students advance regardless of the academic achievement. There is a misconception that Korean students attend school all day long, pretty much getting home around midnight. This seems likely because of the supplemental education, such as from the private sector, either privately run hagwons, which are private institutes or academies, or because of private tutors, or sometimes because of both. There is a weak relationship between the hagwons and the private tutors, where one will ask the students if they have they not learned a certain point from their hagwon teacher. Private education is expensive, costing parents an estimated $11 billion annually because of such a high cost. Because of such a high cost, Korean government has instituted after-school programs within public schools, which resulted in the closing down of 9.3% of Seoul-based hagwons. Schooling. During the first year, students have 3 English classes per week, 3 more in the second year, and 4 more in the third year. Many schools add a 4th class to the first year students' schedule. This may be to front end load the language, and that way they're able to learn other ideas or other more complex language later on. There is no textbook dedicated for this class, and they may still follow the textbook of the main course while supplementing activities developed by the teachers. Many schools have begun to divide the classes into low, middle, and high levels, although this isn't mandated by the national curriculum. Teachers. In Korea, there is no tenure system in the public schools. Teachers are hired by the Ministry of Education and deployed to various schools. Applicants must take a qualification test in the region of their choice. And once assigned, middle school teachers may request a transfer after 3 years and must move on after 5 years. It is interesting that the applicant qualification, the ratio of success to unsuccessful applicants varies considerably from region to region, with larger cities being more competitive, which contributes to the important factor in deciding where to apply. Middle school teachers transfer, and moving pattern repeats throughout their career. Teachers may experience a wide range of social, economic statuses, seemingly correlating to familial situations and student ambitions. And of course, because they're always on the move, there is a high mobility, and the teachers never are tied to one school. The teaching. When we look at the teaching, we're going to be touching on how the classroom is run. Teaching of English in middle school is generally done by a team of 2 teachers, referred to as team teaching, a Korean teacher and a native speaker. Some native speaking teachers divide their week between 2 different schools. Textbooks are developed by the commercial companies and then authorized by the Ministry of Education, and textbook choice is made at the school level. There are a variety of packages. Each package is a unified series of books for the 3 years. Book is assigned in 2 parts, each for 1 semester. A class has 2 books, a main text, and an activity book. The vast majority of the native English teachers come from EPIK, the English program in Korea. EPIK recruits its teachers from countries where English is a primary language. Unlike the Korean counterparts, the native-speaking co-teachers are not required to pass a qualifying exam nor have a background in education, although some training is provided. Native teachers are reallocated more frequently than the Korean teachers. Different expectations are experienced from school to school. In some schools, the native-speaking teachers, which of course would be the English teachers, are seen as equals, while in other schools they may be treated as temporary help. The Korean teachers' experience therefore differs too depending on the foreign teachers. As in a co-teaching team, it is hard to get a perfect match personality-wise. Each year, students progress to the next book in the series. Focus: a middle school English class. As mentioned earlier, this case study takes place in Daejeon, Korea. It is the 5th largest city in Korea with a population of 1.5 million. This case study is informed by observations and discussions with the teachers. The primary team consists of a Korean woman with 13 years of experience and a woman from the UK who's in her 2nd year. We need to remember that because of the high mobility, there's a high mobility of teachers because they are required to move every 5 years. Because of this high mobility, there are different personalities that clash. The previous Korean teacher was outgoing and the current one is more withdrawn. The teachers see the students' families as lower middle class. The class sizes are about 25. And because their personalities clash, the native teacher teaches about 75% of the time. The textbook used is the Middle School English. That's the name of the textbook. And it consists of 185 pages, all colorful, containing illustrations, photographs, sheet music, a mixture of Korean and English scripts, mostly English though. They explain the words such as pancake because it has no direct translation. So pronunciation is given in IPA, which refers to the International Phonetic Alphabet. Korean is used primarily for task instructions or to explain words, as mentioned earlier, because there is no direct translation of pancake. So they use IPA. The characters in the books appear in both Korean and non-Korean. Average length of English sentences is 6.1 words. Middle School English textbook, more in depth. The Middle School English textbook, as mentioned earlier, has 2 parts in the book, 6 and 5 lessons respectively. Every 3rd lesson is a 4-page roundup test. Lessons are organized along notional functional lines. What that means is that they are topics such as introducing oneself, favorite foods, given direction, and holidays. The reason for the notional functional lines is because it is the approach where the organization of the material is determined with notions or ideas that learners expect to be able to express through the target language, and the function acts learners expect to be able to accomplish. So it is topics that even the Koreans or the native Korean speakers would be familiar with. Each lesson is 14 pages long, which is called a blocked lesson. Each lesson does follow a set of patterns. You have your listening, you have your learners response responses move from simple matching or checking to writing single words, a variety of speaking activities, reading and answering activities, writing activities, pair work activities such as information gaps, pronunciation practice, and a game. The activity book is more of an extension or supplemental book offering additional listening activities, reading, and writing assignments as found in the main book. The needs analysis. In the needs analysis, students are assessed to determine which book to choose. Now, this is a challenge since textbooks have to be ordered before classes begin. The national curriculum must be informed by a perception of learners' needs. At the classroom level, national curriculum effectively tells students what they need. And this is unfortunate because it averages or levels out all individual students' needs. Pretty much it says that students will be learning the same thing at the same pace. The national curriculum cannot be modified to accommodate the results one would produce. The curriculum constrains, of course, because all must follow the same textbook at the same pace, and the textbook is designed for the low-level students in mind. The high-level students get bored, and because it is designed for the low-level students in mind, the high-level students get bored and lose language learning passion. And then pretty much, like one teacher shared, all students have to progress at the same time. The textbook choosing highlights that the disconnect between teachers working within a framework of national curriculum and those working outside. Within the framework, there is no needs analysis, nor is it necessary. Implementing the curriculum. In Dijon, class time is devoted to the main text. Additional time may be allocated to the activities book. Any remaining time may be filled with teacher-developed activities related to the lesson. Now, the book is a curriculum that must be followed in sequence with the amount of time devoted to each is predetermined, as mentioned earlier. The time dedicated to each tier is the biggest practical difference between the proficiency levels. The low level is devoted to completing units in the main text, while the advanced class has more time for teacher-created activities. The activities can be assigned as homework to ensure that the covering of the main text. And continuing with implementing the curriculum, teachers developed activities such as PowerPoint, games, or songs. They introduced vocabulary not found in the book, and they ways to use the vocabulary. The lower level class is done by the Korean teacher in Korean. The advanced classes is done by the native speaking teacher, with the Korean teacher stepping in only if needed. They do touch on four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It is interesting to see that while the native English teacher is not expected to communicate in Korean, when the Korean teacher speaks in English, the students feel she is being mean for opting to use the more difficult classroom code. Some of the activities also include discussions and role-playing, different scenarios, game boards, generally the extent of classroom decisions, excluding matters of classroom management. The four strands. Nation and McAllister from 2010 state that a well-balanced course includes approximately equal attention devoted to meaning-focused input, language-focused learning, meaning-focused output, and fluency activities. They do mention the meaning-focused input is provided by teacher instruction and story-based readings in the course books. The language-focused learning concentrates on pronunciation in the first year, with vocabulary gaining ground by the third and with some grammatical information included. Meaning-focused output is provided by the writing activities, which entail writing single sentences prompted by pictures in the book. The fourth strand is fluency with the use of songs. Fluency, there is not much time allotted for fluency since it isn't assessed for university entrance or any time prior to this. Fluency does not exist in the educational services from the private sector, and of course, fluency suffers in education around the world. So pretty much fluency has no weight in the classroom because the goal of the classroom instruction may be less one of teaching and learning than one of raising test scores. In conclusion, teachers in Korea agree that the goal of middle schools is to prepare students for high school, and the goal then changes to prepare students for the university entrance exam. An enrollment in the more prestigious universities helps secure better jobs. What is needed but not provided by the curriculum is a chance to use the language being taught. They feel that much of what is taught is not for immediate use, which goes back to the previous bullet that we are preparing them for the next step in life, not for the current one. Language is for the purpose of overseas travel, and when information is really needed, the grammatical and lexical knowledge is too unstable to be recalled properly. So it is important to remember that what is taught is not for now, but for later. And this is part of the reason why fluency really has no place in education, because it is not something that is needed for now, nor later, maybe before. There is no agreement that the designing of a curriculum is relevant to teachers and students. Since books target the lower level students and everyone is expected to learn at the same pace on the same information, the Korean middle school teacher saw her role as realizing the national curriculum, putting policy into place. The co-teacher disagreed, saying that the national curriculum should inform what happens in the classroom and all students should have learned the same material. There is no notion there should be a national curriculum, but it should be less restrictive and allows teacher some room and creativity. And then, of course, part of teaching is deciding what to be taught, not simply how.